Take one. Ooh, my jaw hurts. Howdy, kids, and welcome to another episode of Escaping the Cave. It is the Toddzilla X Pod Normal Edition. This is going to be episode number 145. Record date October the 30th of 2024. It's been a few weeks. Said that before, time or two, haven't I? Maybe. Feels familiar. Hope you're good. If you were tuning in looking for one of those baseball podcasts, I know I said I was going to do another one. If and when Tigers got knocked out, they did get knocked out by the Cleveland, or wait, was it Cleveland? Yeah, the Cleveland Guardians. Great series, 5 games. I'm still going to do one of those, I think. If I am, I'm going to do it over on YouTube. Just upload some video, so if you want that, check out the YouTube channel. It's Toddzilla X over there. Check it out. I think that's a better place for this stuff. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. Pulling the stuff out of my ass. Great baseball season. World Series has gone, 4 games now. Dodgers were up 3-0, and Yankees just won a thumping last night. Only watched some of it. I can't even remember the score. So it is October 30th. Tomorrow's Halloween. Happy Halloween. We had kids here. We're in a house for the first time. Bought a house a couple of years ago. A little small town, and the wife was all excited last year. Really excited. She wanted to give candy out. She loves kids. I like them too, some. As long as I go home. Anyway, went and bought all this candy. And we're ready. She's excited. She's waiting for kids to come up and knock and ring the doorbell last year. Nobody came. Maybe 1 or 2. Figured out toward the end of the night that this town has a little, I guess it's a tradition. I don't know. Maybe this is everywhere and we don't have kids, so how would we know? Where you have to have the light on or be sitting out on the porch. And if that doesn't happen, old neighborhood kids won't stop by and take your goodies. We were feeling ignored, like we were ostracized by children. Last year, I felt bad for her. She was so excited. Anyway, I think we got to put together this year. Except now, October being what it is in the Great Lakes State. Might rain for trick or treat on Thursday. So, anyway, I like Halloween. Thanksgiving's my favorite holiday. Christmas, New Year's is great. I don't drink as much as I used to, so it's not as great as it used to be, not as legendary anyway. What else we got? Lions 6-1. Boy, this has been fun. I got my MCDC shirt on. If you know, you know. Boy, 3 great football games up there. Detroit football season here in the Great Lakes State in Michigan has changed drastically over the last 10, 15 years. I moved away from here a long time ago. I think I've told you that probably 100 million times. It wasn't a big deal. You want to come back here. You know, you would watch the Lions the way you would watch a car wreck. Right? How are they going to lose? How inept can they possibly be? How can they blow this? Not the case anymore, man. This is a thing. This is a happening. The best era of Lions football ever, right now. And if you watched any of that game in Dallas, I am really having a hard time remembering a more satisfying sporting event, single event that I've ever seen in my life. That was a beatdown. They were trying to get the offensive linemen touchdowns. They were running trick plays for the linemen. Oh, fuck you, Dallas. I think that's what they were trying to say. I'm pretty sure. And then, they had the battle of, it wasn't the undefeateds. Lions had lost to Tampa Bay earlier, but they were playing the undefeated Minnesota Vikings up there in Minnesota. Great game. We got a kicker now. Yay. And then, whatever the hell that was last week against Tennessee. Boy, 52 points. Yikes. And Jared Goff didn't throw for 100 yards. And they scored 52 points. Their special teams were so dominant. Only short fields. They had like a 120 passer rating still. This team's incredible. It's not all chocolate and roses up there, though. I'm not even talking about Aiden Hutchinson. Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams, is that his last name? I think I got that right. I'm off in some nether region here. Anyway, Jamo. We'll call him Jamo. This is a weird story because he wasn't arrested. He's been suspended for performance-enhancing substances. Not drugs, performance-enhancing substances. I don't know what that was. He was suspended by the league for 2 games. He did not appeal. He was out last week, and he's going to be out this week in Green Bay. That's a big deal. That's a bigger game than last week was, no doubt. Has implications later in the year. Jamo's not going to be on the field for that. He is not hurt. He's suspended. Well, it came out last night, I think it was yesterday sometime, that even before this stuff happened, he was pulled over in Detroit with his brother. His brother was driving the car. There were 2 handguns in the vehicle. Now, Jamo's was under the seat. I don't really remember, but I think maybe the driver's, his brother's was on the back seat or something like that. His brother has a CCW. He is allowed to carry and conceal a handgun in the state of Michigan. No problem. Jameson's gun was registered. However, he does not have a CCW. And the cops were going to take him to jail. Something happened where one of the higher-ups at the police department was called, apparently. A little back and forth here and there. Maybe somebody else got involved. I don't remember the exact details. Long story short, a little late for that, but he was let go. He was not arrested. He was on his way to jail up there in Detroit. Somebody intervened and said, nah, it's all good. Was not arrested. Well, Channel 7, WXYZ up there in Motown, they got wind of it. I think it was a big story. Big deal. And I said earlier today that this kid was, he lost for the first year too, like his ACL was, blown up, whatever. Then the second year, he was suspended for violation of gambling rules. 8 games. Missed half the season, his first, real season with the Lions. Wasn't on the field. And then this year, he's been suspended for 2 games already for performance-enhancing substances, and God knows what's going to happen because there's an internal investigation going on up there at the police department now in Detroit. Oh my God, corrupt police force in Detroit? Say it ain't so, Todd. I know. But God knows what's going to happen. I don't trust this kid. I do not trust this kid at all. He's their number 2 receiver now. Talented as hell. Incredibly talented, but this isn't going to end well with him. I don't know what. I'm not making any predictions. I'm only played Toddzilla or Toddstradamus on a podcast. I don't know how it's going to go. I'm just relatively certain that this is not going to end well for the Detroit Lions. His stock's pretty high right now. They need an edge rusher. Hey, you want Jamo? You get his shit together. That's what I'd do. Somebody also said, it's a goddamn good thing, Todd, you don't run things. This is true. It's a really good thing that I don't run things up there. But that's what I'd like to see. This has all the makings of not ending. in a positive way for the Detroit Lions and Detroit fans here. And this is, a lot of people got really upset, get really angry when you start talking about, oh, don't you want him to get his shit together? Oh, why don't you be? I don't really care about this guy. Beyond his skill, beyond what he does on the football field, I don't care about him as a human being one iota. And neither do you. I had one guy. I made this guy as on X. And one guy, he didn't say it to me, he was saying it to somebody else, but I felt like he was talking to me. He's like, hey, white guys, white people, quit having an opinion on Jameson Williams. Huh? What's that got to do with anything? I don't care about him as a man. I don't care about his growth. I don't care about his maturity. I care about him being on the football field, help that team win a Super Bowl. They've already lost Hutchinson for the year. What's he going to do? They're going to have a DUI in his future? Going to see some domestic battery, maybe an assault charge. That's what he said to the cop. Do you know where I live? I live in Detroit. That's why I got this. Well, okay. Grosse Pointe doesn't have any nice apartments for you. I know some places around Novi. Southfield was okay. I lived in Southfield, didn't need a gun. Of course, I wasn't a football player, just a very handsome young man. But point being, there are nice places if you're not residing in downtown Detroit. Do you not have a driver's license? I don't know. I don't care. I don't care about this guy beyond the football field. This is not a young man's enrichment program up there with the Detroit Lions. If he can't keep his shit together, maybe they should give him a mentor. Okay, fine. Have somebody follow him around like a chaperone, help him with his decision-making process. Fine, great, do it. If you don't want to do that and this guy can't stay on the field, can't keep from jeopardizing his career and the Detroit Lions' future, both short-term and long-term, cut your losses and move on. It's a cutthroat business, man. It is. And the reason I'm mentioning all this is not a sports podcast, and I only mention all of this because it's really interesting to watch the debate online about the specifics of this case. Like everybody all of a sudden is Johnny fucking Cochran. Or Judge Judy, perhaps. Maybe that's a better one. This, of course, his lawyer came out and said, well, this is all big nothing burger because Jameson Williams' brother had a CCW and that covers him in the... Does it? Are you sure about that? I'm not 100%. Why was he going to jail then? Why was he on his way to jail if his brother's CCW covers him in a motor vehicle? Maybe that's the case. I don't know. I am not a lawyer. I'm certainly not a Second Amendment expert, lawyer type guy. But that defies common sense. If one person in the car has a CCW, then it covers everybody else that's in the vehicle? Really? That doesn't make any sense to me. It seems like there are a plethora, a myriad, I hate that word, a myriad of things that could go wrong in that scenario. Call me silly. Everybody's like, look what his lawyer said. Yeah, Johnny Cochran came out. Of course he's going to say that. He may as well have a PR firm writing that statement for him. But they're grabbing onto it like it was dictated from on high, like Moses came down from the mountain and chiseled this into factual stone. It's not the case. They want it to be the case. They like the guy. They want the guy on this team so bad. And I understand that. I want him on this team too. I just want him on the damn field. So they're doing anything, any sort of mental gymnastics they can do in order to convince them and proclaim, this is the worst of it, Fine. You know what? You need to do the mental gymnastics. You need to convince yourself that's fine. But then they have to go online and just pronounce it to the world. The more that I'm online, the more I feel like I need to not be. I've talked about this. This goes back to the first year of the podcast, man, 2018, 2019, when I was talking about the social media disease stuff. Boy, and it seems to be getting, I don't know, not so much maybe on Facebook. See, I'm on 2 social media platforms, Facebook and X, Twitter. The last, 6-8 months, I've spent a lot more time on X than I have on Facebook. I am very rarely, I just go in and maybe look every now and then, and will occasionally shitpost something. But really, I'm not on there very much anymore. And it's really hard to say that, it's a big statement, I guess. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say. It's a big thing to say that things have gotten worse on social media in comparison to where they were a few years ago. I mean, things were really bad, just at each other's throat. There's something different. Something has happened. I don't know if it's this election. I don't know if it's just limited to the campaign, but you see it in sports. You see it. There is no commitment, no interest at all in objective truth anymore, especially in the political arena. Oh my God. There is zero, almost zero interest in objective truth. All it is framing, spin. Taking these events and spinning them into your favorable light, whatever you consider favorable light to be. That's what's happening with this Jameson Williams. Nobody's even bothering to consider or investigate what the law is with the CCW. They're taking his word, his lawyer's word. A lot of these folks are not taking into account the fact that he was on his way to jail in the first place. Oh, what his lawyer said. I lived through the OJ trial. Heard a lot of the lawyer said a lot of things back then. If the glove don't fit, you must have quit. Yeah, all right. His CCW covers JAMA. Really? That defies common sense. Maybe it's true. We'll see. But again, the pro-JAMO prognosticators have already decreed that to be law. And this is everywhere. It's not just that. It's all about the story. It's all about the narrative. It's all about taking any kind of event and spinning it in the proper direction. And it's gotten to the point where it's almost like a competitive sport now. It hasn't always been this way. I don't think. It's a complete and total and utter abandonment of objective fact, objective truth, any tethering to any objective collective reality. You can see a bird fly over the wall at Mar-a-Lago, and there would be somebody there to say, that bird is a fascist. Look at the way he's flying. He's flying in Morse code. That's code. White supremacist code coming from this crow. You know what I'm saying? It's exhausting. You go to the media, you turn on electronic media, traditional media, heritage media, cable news, and it's the same thing. Nobody that I'm aware of has any interest in the truth. It's all about presentation, spin, narrative. I'm sick of that word now. We need to kill the word narrative. I've used it a lot on this show. It's a story. It's a fancy way to say your story. Oh, what is a narrative? No, it's a fucking story. The cable news networks and the factions, the partisan factions, places like X, it's story time. It's electronic story time. It's social media story time. That's all it is. The storyteller is in overdrive. The storyteller has hijacked everything. It's incredible. I'm not the only one. I've heard a lot of people say this. Exhausted. Just, please let this end. This fucking election needs to end. It needs to happen. And everyone out there needs to shut the fuck up when it does. That's the attitude that a lot of people have. And I confess I'm there. I even say that to myself sometimes. Yeah, God, just shut the fuck up about this election, Todd. Just let it go. God, it's going to be over in a week. Let's see what happens. What else are you going to say? What else are you going to say that hasn't been said? Are you going to change it? You going to change any hearts and minds, Todd? Hell no. I don't know who you are. I don't know who's listening to this show after those baseball podcasts. Probably not a lot of political people are left. I don't know. Whatever. Am I going to change your mind? Are you tuning in for the political wisdom, the political wizardry of a guy named Toddzilla on a podcast, an obscure podcast on the internet? Is that why you're here? Am I going to educate you? Am I going to influence you? No. You're here to have your story fed back to you. Oh, maybe I make you think. I've heard that a lot over the years. Maybe. Appreciate that. Thank you. But I'm not going to change any minds here. If you're already voting for Kamala, you're not going to, click this podcast off a Trump supporter. And if you're voting for Trump, there's nothing that I could do or anybody else out there can say that's going to change your mind. So now, you know what? With a week to go, who are these mythical undecideds? Who are they? What the fuck's the matter with you? How can it possibly take you this long? How can you possibly, on October 30th, 2024, still be undecided between Kamala and Trump when the election is 6 days away? I'd hate to take you shopping. I would hate to take you out to buy a car. It'd never get done. The choice couldn't be more clear between these two. I talked a lot a few years back about how at some point we were going to be given a ridiculous choice of between the extremes, between a fascist, use that word, more on that coming, by the way, fascism, but between someone on the extreme right and someone on the extreme left. If you want to use the pejorative terms, a fascist and a Marxist/communist. Eventually, the extremes were going to hijack both ends of the political spectrum, and that's what we were going to be given. Now, the choice couldn't be more clear here. I know Kamala is, she's channeling W.C. Fields here. If you can't dazzle him with brilliance, befuddle him with bullshit. She's not saying anything. The word salad thing, it's a method, it's a tool for her to avoid questions, to give answers without giving answers. I told a friend of mine last week that if you really want to figure out who Kamala Harris is, don't listen to anything she's saying now. It's all bullshit. It's all campaign bullshit. Go back 5 years and listen to the things that she was saying in 2019. Some of those have made the campaign commercials. Transgender care for prisoners and immigrants paid for by us. She was big into defund the police. She was all about the BLM movement and the BLM riots. She wanted to raise bail money for people who were arrested rioting around the country after the George Floyd thing. She was one of the furthest left, the most radically progressive candidates in 2019. She didn't get to 2020. And one of the first ones thrown out. She was so batty. And she was chucked out of the campaign before it even got started, really. I think she had a sort of a legendary exchange with Tulsi Gabbard, who was a Democrat back then. This is what pissed me off about it. This is the thing that the reason that I will never support this woman. No one wanted her anywhere near the White House in 2020, and Biden picked her because of her demographic box checking capability. She was a woman of color. She's not even black, for Christ's sakes. What, 6%? She's Indian. But Biden, moderate Joe, had to appease the far left, the identitarians within his own party. So what did he do? Well, I'm going to pick a woman of color for vice president. Seemed pretty goddamn clear to me even then, and I have it on tape, or well, digital podcast tape. Seemed pretty clear to me. The whole idea was, well, let's get her on the ticket. Let's get her in the White House. And if we win, then we can prop her up in 4 years. Problem is, she was so unpopular, there was no way. The first 3.5 years of Joe Biden's presidency, with a few exceptions, every time they tried to roll her out, people recoiled in disgust from her. They do not like her. She was a non-entity for 3 years because no one likes her. No one believes her. No one had any confidence in her. And, Dementia Joe, his dementia, are shining through the cracks the last couple of years. And she goes out there, he's sharp as a tack. I know. Why are you the nominee then? And then this last couple of weeks, there's been this little trend to try to paint Trump as the one who's cognitively impaired. And she's out there, he's unstable, he's losing it, he's a little crazy. Wait a minute. You said Biden was sharp as a tack and full, everything was about him was great. Said that for a year and a half, and you are completely wrong. Where are you? What are your qualifications? It sure isn't track record. Where are your qualifications? How are you qualified then to diagnose Donald Trump's cognitive capabilities? You've been wrong about everything. So, well, if you're going to say that Trump is diminished, you're probably wrong about that too. Trump probably is sharp as a tack. 3.5 years. The woman was hidden away as almost an administrative pariah. Well, we're going to put her in charge of the border. The border czar thing is real. They were trying to prop her up. Trying to give her some bona fides. I don't think she went down there. But then Biden had his little meltdown on the debate. They needed a candidate. It was too late. Biden held on too long. He should have dropped out. He should have never said he was going to run again. I said in 2021, there is no way he can be on the ballot in 2024. I will be utterly amazed if he's not shown the door before then. But here he was. He either refused to go. I don't know what happened. But he was still there. And it was getting late in the game. They should have. Somebody should have. He should have. Taken control of the situation, dropped out, and had a primary because Kamala Harris would not have come out of that primary as the nominee. And the fact that they did not have a primary, this is the biggest sticking point for, well, I don't know if it's the biggest. It's one of the biggest. It kind of ties in with everything else. But they didn't have a primary. So with everything else, I was just saying about being the sort of the DEI Trojan horse. As far back as 2020 when she was put on the ballot, put on the ticket. Here we are again, no primary. They don't have to worry about her not being selected. Let's just appoint her. Let's elevate her. She is, from the beginning, a DEI appointment. Appointed. She was nominated, appointed. She didn't have to be elected as the vice president. Nobody had to go through any interview process with her, at least publicly, to the public. We weren't given a choice if we wanted her on the ticket with Biden. She was appointed, and she was appointed this year as the Democratic Party nominee to take on Donald Trump. She has never won a national election. No one has chosen her for anything but Joe Biden. And that was to appease the DEI identitarians in 2020. Well, here we are. Here we are. I cannot, will not. I could. I guess I could probably get drunk. I think I got a bottle of Captain Morgan back here. I haven't touched it in a year. I could take a few shots and maybe pretend there's no way. No way. And this is the party that claims to be saving democracy. Really. It's a coup. You completely circumvented the primaries and installed this candidate. And then to compensate for that, there was a propaganda campaign, a propaganda blitz, the likes of which I have never seen, the likes of which I don't think you have ever seen since wartime. To cleanse Kamala Harris in the public mind. This was coordinated. It had to be coordinated. Joy, 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 joy. We're joyful, joyful, joy, joy. Happy, happy, joy, joy. Happy, happy, joy, joy. Months of nothing. There are statistics out there. People track this stuff. 85% positive mentions across media. I think this includes Fox News, believe it or not. What does that say about the rest of them? If 85% includes Fox, holy crap. What is CNN, MSNBC, all the rest of them? How are they talking about her? And then it's something like the exact same negative mentions of Donald Trump. It's not analysis. This is advocacy journalism. There's a podcast back there saying that advocacy plus journalism equals propaganda. Literally. It's the literal fucking definition. It's true. Now, you can try to clean that up and you can try to say, well, we're only advocating because the other side is so... It doesn't matter. You have chosen. You have attempted to take the choice out of the people's hands by mind-fucking them, by intellectually and politically molesting them nonstop for months. You took it upon yourselves to change the people's mind about Kamala Harris so she could win an election. And it still might fail. What does that say? What does that say about this woman? How much free press, how much free publicity, free support, free advocacy did she get over the course of the summer? And it still didn't work. She should never be anywhere near a ballot again. But something tells me she's sort of like the Hillary Clinton cockroach. She still won't get it. She's still running 28, I guess, if there's a country. I said a minute ago that she's been trying to paint Donald Trump as diminished. Well, we got a chance to see for ourselves about a week ago when Donald Trump went on the top podcast. I think it's still the number one podcast worldwide, the Joe Rogan Experience. He sat down. He didn't sit down for an hour. He didn't sit down for 2 hours. Donald Trump subjected himself to the full 3-hour massage treatment from Joe Rogan. The full 3-hour brain massage treatment. 3 hours, he said. I watched the whole thing. I had to break it up. I could only watch 2 hours one time. I watched the third hour. He did fine. Meandering all over the place. He calls it a weave. He has, I think he's got ADD. I can kind of sympathize with him a little bit with that. He goes off on these tangents and, he has to kind of find his way. He did a pretty good job of finding his way home, but he was fine. It sounded like Donald Trump. In fact, that was the best version of Donald Trump I think I've ever seen. Calm, relatable. He did this really cool thing with Rogan. He has this reputation as being a narcissist. Probably is a narcissist. But he started to ask questions of Rogan right in the middle of I think it was about halfway through, where he started talking to Rogan about UFC and asking a lot of pretty good questions. He knows a lot about UFC. It was like he turned the tables on Rogan. In the middle of this, I'm like, wow. I don't think I'd ever seen that side of him. He did fine. Not great, not 100%. Nobody's perfect. But you know what? He sat down and he did it. He went down to the studio in Austin. He sat in the studio. He didn't put a time limit on it. Oh, well, I'll sit here for 20 minutes. He did the whole thing. He was even late. He had I think he had a rally up in Traverse City that night. He was in Austin. And I think at the end of it, he said, oh, crap, I got to get going. I got a rally. I got a speech I got to make. He was late for that because he sat through the entire interview. Good for him. There were a couple of things that I didn't like about it, but whatever, he did it. Where's Kamala? She's had an open invitation, same invite put out by Rogan to Kamala Harris. Haven't seen her. Of course, she decided that she'd do the bailout two-step. I think that was as of yesterday, because there's been some question whether or not she's going to do the show. Whether or not she's going to be on Rogan. They're going to have competing podcasts. He gave 3 hours to Trump. He had 3 hours to Kamala. She did the bailout two-step. Put a bunch of demands on Rogan saying that he had to go to her to give her the platform to talk to about 25 million people. He had to go to her like she's doing him a favor. And then she was only going to give him an hour. Yeah. That is the bailout two-step. Gives her plausible deniability. Well, I said I'd do it. He just didn't want to work with him. Bullshit. You made demands on the guy that you knew he was never going to take. He's gonna come to you to do an hour? This is Joe fucking Rogan. I don't think he's ever gone anywhere for anyone else. People are thrilled to get his audience, to get in the headphones of his audience for those sort of in-depth conversations. She didn't do it because Trump nailed it. She'd be on the floor, flopping around, her head on fire, smoke out of her ears. She went on, what was it? I think it was, she went on Fox News. She did do Fox News. Bret Baier. She was supposed to do like maybe a half hour. You know what she did? Showed up late. Showed up 15 minutes late and then tried to filibuster the entire remaining time. They had a quick turnaround. They had to get it on the air at 6. She showed up at 5:15 instead of 5 o'clock and then tried to filibuster, talk over Baier and not answer anything the entire time. You can't do that for 3 hours. Good luck. The magic bullshit spell is going to wear off. You're not going to be able to befuddle anybody with bullshit for 3 hours. Maybe 15 minutes, sure. But how would that have worked? Would she have done the same thing? Say he does. Say he goes and, I don't know, shows up and, where's the swing state? Maybe comes up to Lansing or Ann Arbor. Shows up, sets everything up. Does she show up 40 minutes late? Yeah, probably. It is the bailout two-step. She wanted nothing to do with that show. And to be perfectly honest with you, can you blame her? Do you blame her? Nothing good was ever going to come out of her going on that show. Nothing. And of course, on Sunday, we had the big Nazi rally. That's how they were trying to sell it. Remember, I was telling you, the story, it's what matters. It's not a narrative, it's a story. Well, Donald Trump had his big rally at Madison Square Garden, New York City, on Sunday. And it was going to be, it was all sold as this, seriously, a Nazi gathering, a rally, almost like Nuremberg. I watched probably 3/4 of it because the Lions game was over for one thing. And there was nothing else on up until the Penguin at 9 o'clock. Great show, by the way. The Penguin, if you're on the fence about that, if you haven't seen it yet, watch The Penguin. It's fantastic. Excellent. I wish there were about 4 more seasons of it, but there's not. Anyway, so I watched this. I watched it on Fox. And they kind of did the intros from the studio and everything. They didn't show every single speech. It was fine. It reminded me of the RNC. Tucker Carlson, that was funny. Watching Fox News and nervously and sort of weirdly have to introduce Tucker Carlson. That was fun. Well, here's a name you all know. That's how they sold it. But it was fine. I really didn't... it was pretty much what I expected. It was like the RNC, the Republican National Convention last, whenever it was, July, August, whatever it was. Bunch of speeches, Hulk Hogan, that was cringe. Hulkster, brother, give it up. This isn't your scene. This is twice I've seen him try to rip the shirt. He gets, I think he was trying to tear 2 shirts this time, and one, Hulkster, nobody needs to see that anymore. I understand the draw of this guy a little bit, especially for people my age. But man, Father Time is catching up with you, brother. I thought Vivek Ramaswamy, he sounded great. He's a fantastic speaker. Liked what he had to say. But really, it seemed fine. And then, I don't know where I was. I'm not sure. I didn't see it live. I didn't see it as it happened. The joke heard around the world. I didn't see it. But this joke made by some insult comic comedian. I don't even know his name. I have no idea. I had never heard of the guy, and I still don't know who he was. Apparently, he thinks he's Don Rickles, the political Rickles. But he said that Puerto Rico's a floating pile of trash. Okay. That was the big racist thing, saying that Puerto Rico is a floating pile of trash. Racist, racist. Where's the racism here? He didn't say Puerto Ricans were floating piles of trash. Although Joe Biden did say that Trump supporters are floating piles of trash, I guess, this week. Was it yesterday? I don't understand the outrage here. But yes, again, let's go back to what I said a few minutes ago. It's the story. It's the story. It's how you can frame it. It's how you can spin it. To appear in the most favorable light for your congregation or religion. They seized on it. Boy, all these liberal Puerto Ricans are open arms. Outrage. The outrage of the racist outrage. But Jon Stewart doesn't agree. Yeah, that Jon Stewart defended the guy, whoever his name is. It was a joke. It's a damn joke. Maybe not a good one. I don't think I would have laughed. But it was a joke. Do you think Don Rickles he'd be executed today, right? If Don Rickles were to come along today, yeah, I think he would be publicly flogged and executed. Absolutely. He couldn't do his act today. And I'm here to tell you. I'm going to tell you something right now. What he said was not racist. And what he said apparently has some truth to it. I've never been to Puerto Rico. And things like AccuWeather. I've done articles about how the island has a waste management catastrophe on their hands. Apparently, Puerto Rico doesn't know how to take care of their trash. It's an island. What are you going to do with it? Yeah, there's some understand. There's a path to refuse empathy here. But oh my God, the outrage, racism. One thing I got a lozenge in my, you'll notice my voice is holding up a lot better. I have these lozenges I got. Throat coat. I also got some dental work finished. I think that had something to do with it. I'm getting completely off track. I'm weaving. Anyway, I've never been to Puerto Rico. I have been throughout Central America. All the way through it. I've been down into South America. I've seen all these Latin American countries. Every single one of them. With the possible exception of Costa Rica and, no, not even Panama. They all have waste management problems. I have the photography. It's so bad that I took pictures of their waste management problems. If they were on an island, if Guatemala was an island, be a big island. Well, it wouldn't even be a big island, would it? It would not be a stretch to say that Guatemala is a floating pile of trash because there's trash everywhere. Everywhere. Yes, I understand that Puerto Rico is part of the United States. It's a U.S. territory. It wouldn't shock me. It would not shock me if Puerto Rico looked a lot like El Salvador. And if Puerto Rico is so lovely and so awesome, why are all these Puerto Ricans who are screeching and howling, why are they all here? Why didn't they stay on their island paradise? Always gets me. One thing I will say about that comment, though, I mean, of course, they're overreacting. They always overreact, but that was stupid. It was fucking stupid. It was fucking dumb. It wasn't racist. It was ignorant in the sense that why would you give anybody if you've got a tight race, why bother? What were you hoping to gain here? By making that joke, that specific joke. What was the end game? Who were you hoping to appeal to? How was this supposed to help Trump win anything? I think this guy, first of all, the joke should have probably been vetted a little better. You know? I think they're right about that. But this guy, even if it got through, his point, his primary point was to make a statement for himself. He got all the publicity in the world this week. Bad publicity? Yeah, maybe. But his name recognition has shot through the roof. As I say, I don't know what his name is. I still don't know what his name is. I'm not going to remember. Heathcliff? Or is that a cat? Heathcliff's a cat, right? We'll call him Heathcliff. Meow. So I think that was the whole point of this. Well, should I put this in there or not? Well, you know what? If it creates outrage, I'll probably get work. Stupid. Another comedy of unforced errors. There was one thing I'm going to say before I wrap up here that bothered me Sunday about Donald Trump's speech. And this is deadly serious. This isn't Heathcote or Heathcliff silly. This is deathly serious. Trump made a reference to the Alien Act of 1798 in that speech. I don't know that I've heard anybody talking about this. He seems to think that he's going to invoke the Alien Act of 1798. This is part of the Alien and Sedition Acts, these notorious laws that were passed by, I think, the Federalists, like 1798, to target political enemies. Two separate bills. I think they may have been a series. I'm going to go back and look at this, and I'm not going to get too far into this today simply because I need to go back and refresh. I've got a wonderful book on all of this. I read a little over a year ago. It's called Liberty's First Crisis. The author is Charles Slack. Oof. But that book centers around the Alien and Sedition Acts and targeting political opponents for their speech. In other words, they could put you in jail, and they did put people in jail for saying mean things about people in Congress, about John Adams. Yeah. I don't think there were any slander laws in place, or they hadn't. Again, I have to go back and really refresh myself on this before I go too deeply into it, but he spoke about dredging up that law, and I'm not even sure. I think it's expired. I need to look at this. I don't think it's actually something that can be, hey, let's use this. I think it was allowed to expire because the Federalists didn't want it used against them. Then it became politically unpopular, just toxic, even in their time. But that's the kind of talk there. Again, we'll go back to what I was saying before. That does not change anything that I said about Kamala Harris. She exists off here. This isn't a relative comparison over here to this. It is possible. It is possible to be given such a terrible choice where you have a cultural Marxist over here, or a literal one, and an authoritarian, pseudo-nuevo, neo-fascist over here. Now, I'm going to use one of those cringe words here. Calling Trump a fascist is problematic. Nobody knows what that means. It's an empty shell word that means that with which I disagree. These are not my words. This is George Orwell. Fascism came about in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, right? Actual fascism started in Italy with Mussolini, right? George Orwell went to Spain. This was in the 30s. And fought with the Marxists or the communists against the fascists. Franco. He was shot in the throat by fascists. If anybody knows what a fucking fascist is, it would have been George Orwell in the 40s before he died. That's what he said. The entire definition, even in the 1940s, when it was still in front of you, the word had lost its meaning. It has no definition anymore. It just is some subjective slur, an empty shell of a slur that is basically synonymous with totalitarian, authoritarian, racist now. I saw some shrew who said that, you know who it was? It was AOC, who said one of the primary tenets of fascism is racial subjugation or racial oppression. Really? Is that true? Is that true? Was there a lot of racial oppression going on in Spain? Was there a lot of racial oppression? Is that what Mussolini's fascism is known for? Or are you just using the little dash of poison that Hitler added to it in Germany? And was Hitler really a fascist? Was he really? He called himself a socialist. National Socialist. Socialist programs. Are you sure he was a fascist? Or was he just an authoritarian and fascist sounds cool? Because it really doesn't have any meaning anyway, so anybody you don't like, you can just sort of throw into that box. I use that word a lot. Back probably until about 10 years ago, I was calling George Bush a fascist. A lot of people. And then I looked it up on Wikipedia and realized, oh, wait a minute, this doesn't make any damn sense. This is authoritarianism. This is corporatism. What the hell is a fascist? That should be Matt Walsh's next movie. Maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll take my camera out and start asking people, what is a fascist? You throw that fucking word around all the time. Do you really know what a fascist is? I'll bet you don't. I'll bet you think you do. What are the tenets? You know what liberalism is? You know what communism is? You know what capitalism is? You could describe some of the traits. Describe some of the common traits of fascism for me. And make sure that it's not just being synonymous with authoritarian or tyranny or tyrant. You sure Trump is a fascist? Are you sure? Are you sure he's a Nazi? There were a lot of Jews there. There were Israeli flags hanging from the upper bowl. Do you even know what a Nazi is anymore? Is that synonymous with fascist? Just the empty shell of a slur to be filled with whatever it is that you dislike? Interesting. I'm going to get more into this stuff, though, that I was talking about a minute ago with Trump referring to referencing the Alien Act of 1798. Let me get a little refresher on this stuff. I don't think you want to go down that road. But I will say, there is an interesting parallel to that period of time. It sort of ties in with this shit that we're seeing on the college campuses with Hamas and tear America down. It was about the time of the French Revolution, right? And the Jacobins were over here sort of agitating, going around the country to different communities and agitating against the United States government because they wanted the U.S. to basically revolutionize and become more like France. They were causing a lot of problems, a ton of problems. So that's one of the reasons that found its way into law. One of the reasons. And I got to say, to be honest with you, when he said that, I cringed a little bit, but then I thought to myself, ooh, do you mean we could use this against all these little foreign agitators that are polluting the college campuses? Is this one of the ways? Is it possible? Can a free society, can a free democracy, can it defend itself when the institutions of freedom and democracy are used against it? That is That's a hard question. I've talked about that on the show before, too. I still don't know. I don't know how you do it. This one's going to be quick, huh? I don't know. Got a new hat. Like it? Well, you can't see it if you're just listening. I haven't been very good about uploading the videos. I like it. As I get older, hats become more important. Escaping the Cave podcast, that's what this is. Toddzilla X Pod, that's what this is too. You can check me out on YouTube, Toddzilla X over there. You can check out the Substack if you want. I don't even know why I keep that thing. I don't write anything anymore. Maybe I should. Kind of using it as a safety net in case I get kicked off of Podbean or YouTube. I can move my podcast. But if you go over there, at least subscribe, huh? Subscribe to this too, and YouTube. Tell your friends. Tell your mom. Tell your sister. Tell your sister I said hi. She likes me. Talk to you next time. So long.